So there's 6 different head coach openings, and let's talk about some of the coaches that got let go. Obviously, on yesterday's episode, I talked briefly about Raheem Morris. They fired Raheem Morris and their general manager. I think that's a mistake. Raheem Morris back-to-back 8-win seasons. His clock management not good. His in-game management not good. Get one nerd like me that played a lot of Madden up in the booth to tell him, hey, Raheem, call a timeout here, and I think the problems are fixed. Obviously, he's a good players coach. He's developed guys on that defensive side of the ball. They had a really strong rookie defensive class this year, and I don't think it's smart for them to be moving off of their GM and their head coach when they had back-to-back 8 and 9 seasons. After 2 seasons, it just doesn't seem right to me. I think the GM also did a good job in putting talent on that roster. It's just Michael Penix Jr. might have been a swing and a miss, but he only played a little bit more than half the season, so it's hard to judge. Pete Carroll, that was the obvious one. The Raiders were awful this year. Their offensive line stunk, and Pete Carroll likes to bring his defensive scheme, his defensive system into the NFL. That's why he was so successful in Seattle. He had some great defenses while the Raiders' defense was garbage. He benched Max Crosby, even though Max Crosby was good to play in the last week of the year. And quite frankly, the game was gone. The game was gone in Pete Carroll, but they do keep their general manager. Interested to see what the Raiders do. I assume it's going to be Fernando Mendoza at the quarterback position this offseason. Part-time owner Tom Brady, obviously the second greatest athlete of all time behind Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, I'm a hater. Brady's the GOAT, whatever. But Brady is going to have a lot to do with this roster construction and this head coaching search. Pete Carroll got let go today. And I think Jonathan Gannon was one of the worst hires over the last 10 years, because he was awful. Gannon finished with a 15-36 record in 3 seasons. He went 3-15 against the NFC West, including 0-6 against the Seattle Seahawks. He was awful. He was a defensive-minded head coach because he got hired because he was the defensive coordinator in Philly that year. They went to the Super Bowl. It was a very good defense. The Gannon's defenses in Arizona over the last 3 seasons ranked 30th in points per game, 26th in yards per game, and 31st in third down percentage. Gannon was downright awful. Awful. The Cardinals started out 2-0 this year, and they fell off. The Cardinals were in first place in the NFC West after Week 10 last year when they beat the New York Jets, beat the brakes off the Jets. They ended up losing 4 straight and finished third in the NFC West. Gannon has done to Arizona. I think a lot of people now don't think Kyler Murray's the guy because of how bad Gannon was there. Is Kyler Murray the guy? Remains to be seen. A lot going on in Arizona, but I mean, he was just awful. They should have let go of him last year, but yeah, Arizona's a whole shit show right now, and Gannon was horrible. I'm curious to see what Arizona does. They're a very interesting team right now. Shout out Michael Wilson. That guy's a stud. In other news, not head coaching related, obviously Kevin Stefanski got fired. Kevin Stefanski's the best offensive-minded head coaching candidate available right now. The Browns moving off of him makes 0 sense. The Browns firing Kevin Stefanski is an absolute joke and is proof why organizations like the Browns, organizations like the Jets will forever be poverty. Kevin Stefanski, since he took over as the head coach for Cleveland, has used a league-high 13 different starting quarterbacks, the most successful of the bunch being Joe Flacco. The QBs that have played quarterback for Kevin Stefanski since he took over as the head coach in Cleveland are bottom 5 in the NFL in QBR, yards per attempt, and completion percentage. That guy made the playoffs with Joe Flacco and with Baker Mayfield. And then you give him Deshaun Watson, the highest fully guaranteed contract in NFL history, after he has a million lawsuits about stuff we're not going to get into. What kind of organization does that? And then you give him Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Both guys stink. But somehow this falls back on Kevin Stefanski. He built a great offensive line. He had a good offense when it was run heavy with Nick Chubb. It just got older. So consistently some of the best defenses in the NFL. Stefanski was not the problem in Cleveland. They had a nice young core too this year, especially with all the rookies they drafted. If they got a quarterback that can run in Stefanski's system and Stefanski's scheme, I think the Browns would have been just fine. Firing him makes 0 sense, but they do hold on to their general manager as well. So now the question is, who are some of the best coaching candidates in this cycle? And it's definitely not as good of a cycle as last year, where we saw Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Liam Cohen, some really, really good first-year head coaches. I'm not sure we're going to see a cycle like that in a long time, but I do think there are some sleepers in this year's cycle, although it is definitely a down year in comparison to last year. Like Seahawks offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, the Seahawks offense top 5 in the league in scoring, top 5 in yards per play with Sam Darnold at the helm, and he had Derek Carr and the Saints offense last year overachieving, although the numbers weren't totally great. And JSN leads the NFL in receiving as well. So Clint Kubiak's definitely up there. Obviously, he has the name value as well, grew up in learning how to coach in the NFL. The Bills offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, is a name that's getting tossed around a lot. I personally am not that high on guys that have nasty quarterbacks as their offensive coordinators, but that just might be PTSD of the Jets hiring Adam Gase, because Peyton Manning was Adam Gase's quarterback when he was the offensive coordinator in Denver, and he got a head coaching job in Miami. Didn't really work. Came to New York. I think that was a joke. So I might have PTSD from that. But I'd much rather sign an offensive or any coordinator that does more with less. And I'm thinking on the defensive side of the ball things. I'm thinking Jesse Minter and I'm thinking Brian Flores for sure. I think would be a home run hire. Both of those guys, if you go with a defensive minded head coach. But on the flip side of that coin, in today's NFL, you probably want an offensive minded guy. I mean, you look at the teams that have won the Super Bowl over the last 5 years. Andy Reid, offensive minded guy. Nick Sirianni, not quite sure what he does, but he was an offensive coordinator at one point. Sean McVay, offensive mind. You even look at the teams that have gotten to the Super Bowl, the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, Zach Taylor, and the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, all of the head coaches nowadays are offensive minded guys. Like, the last defensive minded head coach to win a Super Bowl, I think, was it Bill Belichick? I believe it was Bill Belichick. And other than Bill Belichick, has Pete Carroll. Like, in today's modern era of the NFL, you need an offensive-minded guy. But the best candidates in this cycle, I think, are on the defensive side of the ball. And my favorite candidate is Jesse Minter, because of what he's been able to do. Back-to-back top 10 scoring defense, the number 1 scoring defense a year ago. The Chargers are top half of the league in sacks, top half of the league in turnovers. And this defense is the real deal. And he does it with subpar personnel. I mean, other than Derwin James, there's not a lot of guys on that Chargers defense that are real name value guys. Deion Henley, I think, is one of the most underrated off-ball linebackers. Tui Pelotu, obviously a premier edge rusher in this league. But other than that, like, the Chargers defense, especially in the secondary, is they don't have a lot of talented guys. They're just so dependent on the scheme. So for that reason, I think Jesse Minter could be a home run hire for a team if they want to go with a defensive-minded guy. Another guy in the I was looking over this guy, but he's been thrown around in a lot of circles here, and that's Rams defensive coordinator Chris Shula. And shout out my buddy Max. I was talking to Max, and he was telling me, like, he's a Giants fan. I was like, okay, who are you interested in? And he said Chris Shula over Jesse Minter because of the potential staff that Chris Shula could put together. And I thought that was a very interesting and a very solid point by my buddy Soccer Max. Shout out Max Montana, absolute beautician. Because Jesse Minter, he was with Harbaugh in Michigan, and then he's been with Harbaugh in Los Angeles. How many connections does he have at the NFL level? I could just not be doing my homework, but I trust Chris Shula to bring guys with him that have been around McVay, and McVay's obviously as the number 1 coaching tree in the NFL right now. You think of all the McVay guys that have gone elsewhere and found success. So I think Chris Shula of the Rams is a guy you want to keep an eye on. And then Packers, Jeff Hafley is thrown around a lot. Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph has been thrown around a lot. Vance Joseph had his opportunity as a head coach, didn't really work out. I think some guys are better coordinators. Jeff Hafley's an interesting one. This defense has not been good over the past few weeks of the season. And Aaron Glenn has not looked like a good hire. If you remember his defense in the NFC Championship game and in the later half of the season, it was not good. And the Jets hired him. And he has not been good. Aaron Glenn's story is not finished, but Jeff Hafley, I'm sus on him. The Packers defense has been very good. He's done a very good job developing talent, and like Rashawn Gary's, Edgar Dean Cooper's, and stuff like that. So I could see the play there with Jeff Hafley. To be honest, haven't done my complete homework on him, but my favorite candidates on the defensive side of the ball are Brian Flores and Jesse Minter. I went into Jesse Minter. Brian Flores easily has the best defensive scheme in the NFL. They do have good players on the defensive side of the ball, but it's not like he's working with the guys that a Jeff Hafley is or the guys that a Chris Shula is, especially on the defensive line. It's very scheme dependent. And Brian Flores called Tua Tagovailoa a pussy, and I do agree with him there. And I think you kind of need that hard edge if you are going to be a successful NFL coach, even in today's NFL. I think you kind of need that. And Tua Tagovailoa is a pussy, but I'm definitely not biased at all. Offensively, I think it's Kubiak. I think it's Stefanski. There's a few other names that are getting thrown around in offensive circles, and the name I keep seeing a lot is Matt Nagy. That seems like a horrible idea. The Chiefs' offense has taken a dip since it went from Bieniemy to Nagy. Matt Nagy, an offensive mind, but when he was the head coach in Chicago, they relied on the defense to be successful. I am not sold on Matt Nagy whatsoever. A few other names is Matt LaFleur, Mike LaFleur's brother, who was the Jets offensive coordinator. I thought he wasn't horrible. I really didn't think he was horrible. He was very creative in some of his play calling. He just didn't have a good offensive line and not a whole lot of weapons to work with. Plus, Zach Wilson was throwing him the football. I don't know if he's ready yet, but everybody likes to see Rams offensive coordinator. Of course, he can be pan out to be an NFL head coach. I think Raheem Morris could get a nod somewhere as well. Trying to think. I wonder if Liam Cohen has any assistants that could be up for that could sneak in. I was gonna say the Patriots but McDaniels is the OC there. He's proven to be a better coordinator than head coach multiple times. Is there anybody in the college ranks that maybe Cignetti gets a few calls? I wouldn't be surprised there. But yeah, I think those are the main candidates for now. I might be missing some obvious ones. I apologize if I am, but I think the best coaches in this cycle are Chris Shula, Jesse Minter, Brian Flores, Kubiak, and Stefanski, but none of them really jump out. I think Jesse Minter is the best coach in this cycle. Minter or Flores. Oh, Mike McCarthy is another one that I'm a believer in Mike McCarthy for sure, especially for an organization that doesn't want to take a chance on like on a first-time head coach. Cliff Kingsbury was a name that got thrown out there a good amount as well. I think he's done a great job with Jaden Daniels in that offense in Washington. He could be a good second-time head coach, I believe. So there are a lot of names here, and I think this is a year where we might get some surprising ones. Like I wouldn't be shocked if Cliff Kingsbury would surprise me a little bit. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets to go somewhere where like there's a lot of potential first-time head coaches, but none of them from a name brand tree. None of them are really from like an explosive, I don't know how to say. Like Ben Johnson was a marquee guy. Mike Vrabel was a marquee guy. Liam Cohen turned into a marquee guy the later we got in the cycle. I was late to the Liam Cohen hype. Shout out my buddy Soccer Max. Again, second time mentioning him. He was bullish on Liam Cohen from the start. I was skeptical, but then as I got into it, I was like, yeah, this guy's the real deal. That's proven to be correct. But yeah, that's the grasp on Black Monday and the NFL coaching cycle right now with a lot more news to come, I'm sure.